Ellen's just joined. All right. Hey, Ellen. Cool. I love her. There's like a major delay. There's like a major delay. There's like a major delay. And there's a repeat.
Get off your phone.
That's right. That's right.
Like feedback, maybe.
Yeah. It plays it there and then it re-records it on the microphone.
I'm trying to get it on here.
All right, it's 5:30. All right, welcome to TLC. All right, so that you guys know who I am, my name is David Dobbs. I am starting a local business in Hartwell, Georgia, and I've got a few ideas that I'll talk about over the course of this presentation. Typically, we hold TLC, which is Tuesday Longevity Club, in Hartwell. We hold it at an art gallery, and once we held it in an actual home of a club member. And this week, I'm actually just doing this online. We canceled the in-person meeting because we've got members traveling. We also have the art gallery is kind of a mess. Right now, the art gallery is being moved. I can't really say where yet because it's the art gallery has not officially moved. And also, I am going to be opening up my own studio, Longevity Studio. And I will share a little bit about the vision and the mission of that tonight. But before I get into that, I want to tell you guys what got me into this, interested in longevity in the first place. We can get onto presentation mode, that would help. All right, so cognitive function is my main passion when it comes to longevity. My grandfather, Papa, he had dementia. He had a form of dementia with Lewy bodies, which is a protein. And it was really, really difficult and heartbreaking to watch him go through that. And, you know, him knowing what's going on, but he just couldn't think. And the number of symptoms that he had, and it was just really, really painful. And it wasn't just painful for him, but for the entire family. For Graham, that's my grandmother. And then secondly, my grandmother, Nana, that's on my stepdad's side. She also had some pretty major but undiagnosed cognitive function issues. and that really wore on her relationship with her grandkids and with her family, and that was also painful. And then me personally, I dealt with ADD growing up. I was diagnosed with ADD. I'm not sure how old I was, maybe 6, 7, 8. Potentially, it could have been misdiagnosed. However, I have struggled with cognitive function issues in my life, and I really am sick of them. Now, I have figured out what was causing those issues, and I can definitely see a change. But I wish that I didn't wait until I was 30, 29 to figure that out, what exactly was causing that. So when I first got into nutrition, there on the left is a circle with nutrition in there. That was January of 2017. So that was 3 years ago. I read this killer book. It was a recommendation from my friends Hallie and Jason. The book is called It Starts with Food. It's an elimination diet, and they basically turn you into a scientific experiment of one, and you figure out for yourself what is causing the problems. And you take out a number of different things, and you take out 6 things, and I'll talk about those later. But that approach, and you do that for 30 days, and then you introduce them one by one after that. And that is called an elimination diet, and you reintroduce them one by one so that you know how it affects you. And anyway, I learned so much from that, and I did the experiment more than just once. I believe I've done it 4 times, and I'm just in love with it. So inflammation, that is pretty much the key to all of these cognitive function issues and all of these other cancers and diseases that we have. And then I'm also passionate about weight management too, mostly because there's just a bunch of false information and false understandings about weight management. And I used to work at GNC. That's a supplement store, and we were taught certain things and certain ways of thinking, schools of thought, and they were misguided, at best. So I'm very passionate about it because of that also. And I think it's time for the mission. Yep, and the mission was the next slide. My mission is to enhance the experience and health education of aging populations through longevity classes and personal training as well. All right. So what's an aging population? There's not a population that ages, and there's one exception to this. My buddy Mike, he has Benjamin Button's disease. That's where you're born an old man and then you get younger. Anyway, they made a movie about it. Brad Pitt's in it, and that's the only exception to that rule. So everybody, I'm pretty sure you know that I'm joking on that. But all right, so that is the mission, and I've got a couple of ideas, and I'm going to share those ideas in the vision. All right, these are just the highlights. All right, so I've got a ton more ideas where this came from. I want this to be a nonprofit. organization where people can go, they can get educated. I can help them learn the reasons why they need to do certain things. It may be different from what they've ever heard before. Also, they can develop a relationship with me. And if I'm working, if I have any coworkers with me, they can also develop a personal relationship with them as well. And a place where they can physically train their muscles and their bodies and use their joints and add stability so that they're not hurting physically as much anymore. And then also not just a location where people can go, but I want to have a bus, call it the Jevity bus or the TLC bus or something like that. And we can take that out into the field and go to senior living facilities and even like Walmart parking lots. So, the blood drive, you see the blood drive on occasion at Walmarts. I gave blood one time at a Walmart by this company called Life South, lifesouth.org. So they're a nonprofit organization that deals in blood transfusions, that sort of thing. So that's really where my heart is. I want to educate them. So I also want to have this like a red light therapy booth at my studio. And I want to have a red light therapy, like little room on my longevity bus. And all right, so that's pretty much the end of the vision highlights that I wanted to share. All right, so last week or previous weeks at TLC, this is the stuff that we talked about. So the first week we actually talked about multiples. We talked about cognitive function. I think I want to talk about that every single week, cognitive function, because that's where my fire is. Inflammation, pain management. We talked about sleep. We talked about mineral balance. And last week, we talked about weight management. And I plan on going back through these, like having a rotation and making videos and updating on a really regular basis. One more highlight of the vision is I would like to be able to offer these talks to people in their homes. So maybe gather like 5 people who are aging and get them all in a room and just talk to them. Give them one of these TLC talks that they're interested in, that's relevant to their life. It can be in their living room, or they can come to my studio, make an appointment. And I really want to do that either at no cost to them or very, very affordably. So, all right. Tonight on TLC, we're going to review a little bit from last week on the weight management part. And then we're going to go into the elimination diet, which was one of the solutions for weight management. And then we're going to talk about something that I am super passionate about, and that is coffee. I have worked at 5 coffee shops, 4 of which were in bookstores. Actually, technically, one of those 4 was underneath the library at my college. So see 2 Barnes and Nobles, a Books A Million, underneath the library, and then my most recent one is here's a shout out to Javasana in downtown Hartwell. I worked for them as well. It's helping out. But anyway, I love coffee, and we're going to be talking about coffee add-ins and the ones that don't spike your insulin, which is very rare to find something that does not spike your insulin, and why that's important. All right, so cool. All right, so weight management. This was the review from last week. All right, so here's a little analogy. We have a freezer on the left, a refrigerator with a freezer on top, right center, and energy expended off to the right. And we got this fancy animations coming in. You already know that that's a fridge. That is going to represent glycogen. All right, so glycogen is stored in two different places in the body, one of which is the liver and another one of which is the muscles. All right, so back over to the freezer. This is going to represent your body fat storage. All right, and that is going to be in your fat cells. All right, so there is, in your body, you have to use everything up from the fridge before you can access the freezer. Okay, and when this certain hormone, chemical messenger, is present, you cannot access anything in the freezer. Okay, so we want to keep this low. All right, so this is going to be represented by a valve in the center, and that hormone, that chemical messenger, is called insulin. All right, so we want to keep insulin as low as possible for as long as possible. All right. Cool. So the elimination diet is a solution for that, for keeping insulin low. Intermittent fasting is another solution. Alternate day fasting is another one. That's recommended for people who are 40 and up. Or you could combine all three of those solutions, and really, it can be really therapeutic for your body and a solution to weight management. All right. So tonight, we're going to talk about the elimination diet. So this is from that book. It Starts with Food, my favorite book of all time, basically on the subject. I've read several books on diet and nutrition and stuff, and It Starts with Food is just it is so great at telling you why you need to not eat a certain thing, or why something is an elimination or eliminated. All right, and also it points out in the very first bit that no scientific study ever has you in the subject. So, I mean, subject technically has the letter U in it, but as far as you being a participant that they observe, there's not one that exists unless you're one of those people. So this is encouraging you to become that scientific experiment. All right, so the stuff that they are going to eliminate, all right, sugar and sweeteners, that should be pretty obvious, the sugar part. Sugar spikes your insulin. Table sugar is made of 50% glucose and 50% fructose. All right, sweeteners that don't have any calories, do they spike your insulin? This is very, very funny. They actually do. They actually do. The reason why is because to put them in a powder form, they have to be like combined or synthesized with a carbohydrate of some sort. And they extract the calories with science, but that carbohydrate still causes an insulin response. All right. So if we want to keep insulin low for as long as possible and keep it low for as long as possible, we need to avoid those two things. Also, a friend of mine reminded me today, and also the first chapter of this book is about psychology and how we have this very personal relationship, and we get a psychological response or brief fulfillment with the food that we eat. So it might be a texture that we're looking for, but in that moment when we eat that sugar, or sweetener, we get that psychological response, and so we have that relationship with food. So we're gonna eliminate that for 30 days at least, and we're gonna have a more natural relationship with food. All right, the next one is grain. So grain, there's a bunch of different kinds of grains out there, and I don't really want to make this a super long conversation about grains. But for instance, this one grain, wheat, that has a very high glycemic index. That's another conversation of what the glycemic index is, other than it's how fast and how long something spikes your blood sugar. Okay, and if your blood sugar is high, your insulin is going to be high. And if your blood sugar is high for a long time, that is very, very dangerous and not healthy. I can get into that more on another talk. All right, so avoid grain. They're mostly carbohydrate, but they're the genetically modified ones have some really nasty proteins in them that are very difficult to break down. And since they're difficult to break down, you're going to have digestive issues, and it's going to elevate your insulin for a longer period of time because it takes longer to digest. Okay? All right. Dairy. So dairy has sugar and protein and carbohydrate in it. So there's lactose, which everybody knows about, which that can cause some bloating. But that's really not the culprit, like the main thing that we're trying to avoid here. I found that in my own body that this really, really stops me up. It makes me not regular, and it's the casein. So as far as the protein goes in dairy products, cow's milk dairy, it is 20% whey protein and it's 80% casein protein. And whey protein, not really the problem, but the casein is. The casein turns to a sludge in the body, and it's really, really difficult to digest. It's highly inflammatory, and dairy is a very, very difficult one for people to not eat for a considerable amount of time. This was one of the hardest ones for me to give up personally, and I eat dairy from time to time, so I haven't completely eliminated it altogether, but I do know that is one of the things that really messes with my system the most. All right, and inflammation definitely causes cognitive function issues, and I know that it can make me lazy. So if you're going to go personal train somewhere or something, definitely don't do dairy right beforehand, because that thing turned into sludge, the casein turned into sludge, will really hurt your athletic performance. Okay, do that. All right, so legumes are the next one. Legumes, it sort of depends on who you are. So if you have RA, rheumatoid arthritis, or if you have any sort of systemic inflammation, or if you have an injury of some sort, an old injury, like I've got this knee issue from football when I was in 10th grade. I hyperextended my knee, and it's healed now, right? But anyway, legumes, the proteins in legumes can cause an excess easy for me to say, inflammatory response. So even if it's like fully healed, the legumes that you eat can like ramp up and excite your immune system so that it hurts, and it just causes excess inflammation. So one of the analogies that I've thought about but never have actually used in conversation is you're the president, or your brain is the president, and we need to send in a small squad of Navy SEALs somewhere to take somebody out. And instead of doing that, your brain, your body sends an atomic bomb and bombs the whole place, and it destroys good cells and bad cells. And there's a lot of collateral damage. Okay, lots of casualties on both sides, as opposed to just send in a small squad and take out one person. All right, cool. Soy. So soy, this one's a big one with glyphosate. Glyphosate is an herbicide. An herbicide is something that kills plants. The plant that they're trying to kill is weeds, or are weeds. And so if you're a soy farmer and you want to increase the yield of your soybean farm, you can use this one called glyphosate. The commercial name is Roundup, and Roundup strips your gut lining. So with your gut lining, imagine a trash can, and imagine a can liner in that trash can. And then you dump this chemical in there that destroys the can liner. And, oh, by the way, let me back up just a second. The trash can itself, that represents your body. So the chemical goes in the trash can and the can liner. And then you pour this chemical in there, and it eats away at the can liner itself, and then it gets into the can, and it's all in the bottom of the can, so it's in your body now. All right, and so invaders can get in there. Proteins that are difficult to digest can get in your body. Soy is one of those high residue, glyphosate residue foods, and as well as grains. Grains definitely can be one of those. So if you are going to eat soy or grain, I can definitely recommend that you go non-GMO. The genetically modified plants, they survive better. They are genetically modified to withstand glyphosate. So they can essentially, the farmers can douse their fields with the glyphosate and still get a good yield. Okay. All right. So that's one more thing about soy. This isn't really a weight management thing. This is a female sex hormone thing. Soy is known to have a lot of phytoestrogen. Phyto means plants, and that starts with a PH, not an F. Phytoestrogen, and your body doesn't know the difference between phytoestrogen and actual estrogen. Okay, so when you're eating soy, whether it's GMO or not GMO, you're eating phytoestrogen. If you're a man and you eat a little bit of phytoestrogen every now and then, hey, that might not be a problem. Okay, if you're a woman and you eat it every now and then, that might not cause a problem. But if you're eating soy like all the time on a very regular basis, I've got to stop and think, well, my body probably knows that it doesn't have to create that or produce that or release that hormone anymore. So with long-term use of that, could that affect you down the road? Could that maybe make you not produce estrogen? If you're a woman and you're late in age, that could be a problem. So, all right, so that's the end of soy. And the last thing is alcohol. All right, so I just talked about glyphosate and how it strips your gut lining. Alcohol does the same thing to your gut lining. It strips it just the same way. All right, cool. Coffee add-ins. All right. Got a friend here. She's going to make me some coffee. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about the add-ins. So, all right, so everybody knows about coconut oil, or maybe not everybody knows about coconut oil. That can be a good thing. I'm not going to say that does not spike your insulin, but it is low. It doesn't spike it much if it does. All right, ghee. Ghee is clarified butter, so the proteins have been taken out of it, so it's just fat. All right, so and then the last one, we'll just go ahead and get into that. Caprylic acid. So it's one of the several MCT oils. Caprylic acid, I believe, is known as C8. All right. And that you can put in your coffee, and it'll change the taste, it'll change the texture. If you blend it, put it in the blender and blend it, then you're going to actually have a very delicious drink. The caprylic acid, I believe it turns into ketones within like a couple of minutes. All right, and ketones are great for just burning body fat. So if you've got a weight management thing that you want to do, you want to burn some fat. If you also want to turn your brain on, caprylic acid is a great thing to use. Coconut oil has caprylic acid in it, but it's not very much. All right. You may hear the tea kettle, the electric tea kettle boiling right now. So sorry if you can hear that. If that's a distraction. All right, that's the end of my talk. So I'm going to turn on the camera. Actually, I think I have to cancel think I've got to end the live video, and then I've got to redo the live video. So just stay tuned or join back in. I'm about to end this. Thank you guys for tuning in. And then the next part will just be me taking the caprylic acid and putting it in the coffee and blending it, right?